Blue stood at the entrance of Earth's International Institute of Xenobiology, their outer membrane shifting colors rapidly from anxiety. The prestigious exchange program had accepted only 3 alien students this cycle, and Blue had scored the highest marks in their home world's biology program. But now, staring at the building where they would spend the next 2 Earth years, they felt nothing but disappointment. Humans. Of all the species Blue could have been assigned to study, they got humans. Simple bipedal mammals with barely 200 years of space travel history. Their application had listed crystalline silicon-based lifeforms as their first choice, with plasma beings as second. Instead, they would waste precious research time studying what essentially amounted to water bags with bones. The orientation room buzzed with excited chatter as various alien species mingled with human students. Blue's sensory tendrils picked up multiple languages, most being automatically translated through their neural implant. They found an empty spot near the back, trying to avoid attention. "Welcome, new researchers." The human at the podium smiled, showing their teeth. Blue had studied enough xenobiology to know this wasn't a threat display, but it still made their membrane ripple uncomfortably. "Today marks the beginning of your journey into advanced comparative biology." Blue's attention drifted as the human droned on about schedules and safety protocols. Their gaze wandered to the window, where they noticed 2 humans moving heavy equipment across the campus grounds. The temperature outside was 35 degrees Celsius according to Blue's environmental sensors, hot enough to make their own cooling systems work overtime. Yet these humans kept working, liquid streaming down their skin. "Fascinating, isn't it?" a voice whispered next to them. Another student, a gaseous being contained in a mobility sphere, had floated closer. "Those humans have been at it for 3 hours now. No breaks except for drinking water." Blue's primary eye spots widened. 3 hours. In this heat, they consulted their downloaded database on human biology. Their core temperature should be reaching dangerous levels. "That's the interesting part," the gaseous being replied. "They're cooling themselves through evaporation. Most species would have gone into heat shock by now." Before Blue could respond, the orientation leader announced they would be touring the facility. The group moved through various laboratories, but Blue kept thinking about those workers outside. Perhaps there was more to human biology than their initial research had suggested. The tour reached the physical assessment lab, where a human was undergoing endurance testing. Blue watched in growing amazement as the subject maintained a steady pace on something called a treadmill while connected to various monitoring devices. The minutes ticked by, and the human kept running. 45 minutes and counting, the lab technician announced proudly. "Our subject is demonstrating average human endurance capabilities." Average. Blue's membrane shifted to a deep shade of purple, their species equivalent of shock. Their own people could maintain intense physical activity for perhaps 10 minutes before requiring rest. Most spacefaring species they knew of had similar limitations. The tour continued, but Blue lingered behind, making quick notes in their neural database. They began calculating the energy requirements for such prolonged activity, the efficient oxygen utilization needed, the complex cooling system that allowed for such sustained effort. By the time orientation ended, Blue had filled several data segments with observations and questions. They barely noticed the sun setting as they sat on a bench, reviewing their notes. Their initial disappointment had transformed into intense curiosity. A cleaning unit approached, operated by another human. Blue watched as the worker methodically moved through their tasks, lifting, bending, pushing heavy equipment. More fascinating data points. How could a species maintain such consistent physical output? The biochemical processes involved must be extraordinary. That night, in their assigned quarters, Blue accessed every available database on human physical capabilities. Their disappointment from the morning seemed ridiculous now. These humans weren't simple at all. They were walking biological miracles that somehow evolved on a death world with crushing gravity and extreme temperature variations. As Blue finally entered their rest cycle, their last thought was both exciting and terrifying. Tomorrow they would begin actual close-range studies of these remarkable beings. Perhaps getting assigned to humans wasn't a disappointment after all. It might turn out to be the most fascinating research opportunity in their academic career. 2 weeks into the term, Blue sat in the Institute's cafeteria, watching humans eat their midday meal. Their research pad was filled with notes about human digestive capabilities, but today something else caught their attention. A human kitchen worker had accidentally cut their finger while slicing vegetables. Instead of seeking immediate medical attention, they simply wrapped it in something called a Band-Aid and continued working. Blue's sensory tendrils twitched with excitement. According to their calculations, this was the same human who had cut themselves 3 days ago. Yet that wound was already completely healed. The speed of human tissue regeneration was remarkable. During the afternoon xenobiology class, Blue could barely focus on the lecturer. Their thoughts kept drifting to the various healing processes they'd observed. Humans recovered from minor injuries in days, while most species required specialized medical intervention for even small wounds. Their own species took weeks to heal from simple cuts. After class, Blue headed to the campus gym, a facility they'd started visiting daily. Officially, they were there to document human exercise patterns. Unofficially, they couldn't tear themselves away from watching humans deliberately stress their muscles to make them stronger. A human lifted weights, their muscles straining under the load. Blue's sensors indicated the weight was nearly twice the human's body mass. Even more fascinating was how the same human would return day after day, gradually increasing the weight. Their muscle fibers actually grew stronger in response to damage, an adaptation that seemed almost impossible. Blue was so absorbed in their observations that they didn't notice Professor Green approaching. "Interesting research topic you've chosen," the professor said, making Blue's membrane flicker in surprise. "I'm just conducting basic physical capability studies," Blue replied quickly, trying to sound casual despite their racing thoughts. The professor smiled knowingly. "You've logged more hours in the gym than any researcher I've seen. Your focus seems particularly intense." Blue's membrane shifted to a deeper shade, embarrassed at being so obvious. The human capacity for physical adaptation is remarkable. Did you know they can repair micro-tears in their muscles within 48 hours, and their bone density increases in response to regular stress? Professor Green nodded. "Why don't you come to my office? I have some research papers on human physical adaptation that might interest you." In the professor's office, Blue discovered a wealth of information. Humans didn't just heal, they came back stronger. Their bones could mend from breaks that would permanently cripple other species. Their skin could regenerate with minimal scarring. Even their internal organs had impressive regenerative capabilities. That evening, Blue sat in their quarters, surrounded by holographic displays of human medical data. They had started recording their own videos of human physical activities, carefully documenting recovery times and performance improvements. The pattern was always the same: stress, recovery, improvement. Stress, recovery, improvement. A notification popped up on their pad. Someone had posted about an upcoming human sporting event at the Institute. Blue quickly registered to attend, their membrane rippling with anticipation. They had to see more of these capabilities in action. Later that night, unable to enter their rest cycle, Blue found themselves reviewing their growing collection of research notes. The initial entries showed their early dismissal of human capabilities. Now, pages of observations detailed the remarkable endurance, healing, and strength they witnessed daily. A message arrived from their home world, a routine check-in from their academic advisor. Blue started composing a response but stopped halfway. How could they explain their growing obsession with human biology? Their own people valued intellectual and technological advancement over physical capabilities. They wouldn't understand Blue's fascination with these primitive biological functions. Instead, Blue opened a new research document and began organizing their observations. The healing rates, the muscle development patterns, the endurance records, all of it pointed to something extraordinary. Humans weren't just surviving on their high-gravity death world. They were thriving in ways that defied conventional xenobiological understanding. As the Institute's artificial lighting dimmed to simulate night, Blue made one final note. Humans don't just heal, they adapt. They don't just survive, they get stronger. Every limitation seems to be a challenge they're determined to overcome. Their membrane rippled with excitement as they added, further research is essential to understand these remarkable capabilities. What had started as scientific curiosity was becoming something more. Blue wasn't just studying humans anymore. They were beginning to admire them. Blue nervously entered the Institute's main research lab, their membranes shifting colors rapidly. Professor Green had assigned them a human research partner for their xenobiology project, and Blue wasn't sure how to handle such close contact. It was one thing to observe humans from a distance, but working directly with one. Their sensory tendrils twitched anxiously. The human was already there, setting up equipment. He looked up and smiled. Hi, I'm Tom. You must be Blue. Professor Green told me about your interest in human physical capabilities. Blue's membrane stabilized slightly. This human seemed friendly enough. Yes, I find your species fascinating, especially your healing abilities and physical adaptations. Tom laughed, a sound that made Blue's sensors vibrate pleasantly. Well, I'm studying alien biology myself, so I guess we can learn from each other. Want to see what I'm working on? Over the next hour, Tom showed Blue his research on comparing different species' physical capabilities. Blue watched in amazement as Tom easily lifted heavy equipment, typed rapidly on multiple screens, and maintained a steady stream of conversation, all while keeping his body temperature regulated through that remarkable evaporative cooling system. You're doing it again, Tom said, smiling, taking readings while pretending to listen. Blue's membrane turned a deep shade of embarrassment. I apologize. It's just, you're performing multiple tasks simultaneously while maintaining thermal homeostasis. Most species would need rest periods. You know, you could just ask me questions instead of secretly scanning me, Tom suggested. I'm happy to help with your research. This was a new concept for Blue. Direct interaction with a research subject. You would allow me to study your physical capabilities. Sure, as long as you share your findings. I'm curious about how humans look from an alien perspective. Over the next few weeks, Tom became both research partner and subject. He demonstrated various physical activities, explaining how humans built strength and endurance. Blue learned that humans actually enjoyed physical challenges, a concept that amazed them. One day, Tom was showing Blue how humans could adapt to different temperature environments. Watch this, he said, entering the lab's climate chamber. The temperature rose steadily, but Tom's body maintained its core temperature through sweating. Then, as the chamber cooled, his body adjusted again. Remarkable, Blue murmured, recording the data. Your species can function in temperature ranges that would incapacitate most others. It's not just functioning, Tom explained, wiping sweat from his forehead. We can actually train ourselves to handle more extreme temperatures over time. Blue's fascination grew with each session. They learned about human bone density, muscle fiber types, and the intricate dance of hormones that regulated physical responses. Tom was patient with their endless questions, even when Blue's scientific interest occasionally veered into personal territory. No, Blue, you can't scan my brain while I sleep. Tom laughed one day. There are some boundaries we need to maintain. Blue's membrane rippled with embarrassment again. They were finding it increasingly difficult to maintain professional distance. Every new discovery about human capabilities made them more intrigued, and Tom's willingness to share knowledge only added to their growing admiration. During one research session, Tom was demonstrating human grip strength when Blue noticed something odd. Their own heart rate had increased, and their membrane was displaying colors typically associated with strong emotional responses. They quickly filed these observations away for later analysis. As the day ended, Tom suggested they should compile their research for a joint presentation. Your perspective on human biology is unique, he said. And honestly, You've helped me see things about my own species that I never considered before. Blue felt their membrane shift to colors they'd never displayed before. This partnership was becoming more complex than they had anticipated. The scientific fascination with human physical capabilities was now mixed with something else, something they weren't quite ready to analyze. That night, updating their research notes, Blue found themselves writing less about biological functions and more about Tom's patient explanations, his encouraging smile, his dedication to understanding other species. They quickly deleted these personal observations, but they couldn't delete the feelings behind them. Science was supposed to be objective, Blue reminded themselves. But somehow, studying humans, studying Tom, was becoming anything but objective. The Institute's annual sports competition had drawn a surprisingly large crowd. Blue sat in the observation area, their research pad ready to record data. Tom had insisted they come watch, saying it would be valuable for their research. Blue hadn't expected so many alien species to show interest in human athletic activities. The 100-meter sprint is first, Tom explained, sitting next to Blue. The proximity caused Blue's membrane to flutter slightly. Watch how the runners generate such explosive power. The starting signal sounded, and Blue's sensors went into overdrive. The human athletes accelerated to speeds that seemed impossible for bipedal beings. Their muscles contracted and released in perfect sequence, their respiratory systems working at peak efficiency. Did you see that? Blue's tendrils waved excitedly. Their leg muscles are generating enough force to overcome your planet's high gravity, yet their joints are absorbing the impact without damage. Tom grinned. Wait until you see the marathon runners. That's when human endurance really shows. As the day progressed, Blue witnessed displays of human physical capability that defied their previous understanding. The high jumpers launched themselves over bars set at more than twice their height. Weightlifters hoisted massive loads that should have crushed their skeletal structures. Gymnasts defied gravity with controlled precision that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Look at their recovery times, Blue muttered, frantically recording data. Between events, athletes would rest briefly, drink water, and then perform again at peak levels. Their bodies are processing lactic acid buildup at extraordinary rates. A group of alien students nearby were equally amazed. Blue overheard them discussing how their own species would require days of rest after such activities. Even the most athletic among them couldn't match the sustained output these humans were displaying. The marathon began, and Blue watched in fascination as the runners settled into a steady pace. They'll maintain this speed for over 2 hours, Tom explained. Some humans can run even longer. 2 hours. Blue's membrane shifted to a deep shade of disbelief. In this gravity, under direct sunlight, their own species could barely manage sustained activity for 15 minutes. As the competition continued, Blue noticed something else. The joy the human athletes took in pushing their limits. They smiled, encouraged each other, and seemed to actually enjoy the physical stress. It was so different from Blue's own people, who avoided physical exertion whenever possible. Tom was called away to help with event organization, leaving Blue to continue their observations alone. Without Tom nearby, Blue found their attention wandering to compare other humans with him. None seemed to have quite the same efficiency of movement, the same grace in their actions. Focus on the data, Blue muttered to themselves, trying to stay professional. But they couldn't help noticing how Tom moved through the crowd, his muscles working smoothly as he carried equipment, his body maintaining perfect balance despite the uneven ground. The final event was something called obstacle course racing. Blue watched in amazement as humans climbed ropes, crawled under barriers, jumped over walls, and swam through water. The combination of strength, speed, agility, and endurance was unlike anything they had ever documented. Impressed, Tom had returned, slightly sweaty from helping with the events. Blue's sensors detected the increased pheromones in his perspiration and quickly shut down that line of data collection. It's incredible, Blue admitted. Your species seems to have evolved to overcome any physical challenge. The others here can't believe what they're seeing. "We just like pushing our limits," Tom said, "finding out what we're capable of." As the event ended, Blue looked at their research notes. The data was extraordinary: heart rates, oxygen consumption, muscle stress patterns, recovery times. But they had also filled several pages with observations of how the humans encouraged each other, celebrated together, supported those who struggled. And more pages than they cared to admit contained data about one particular human's movements, expressions, and physiological responses. Blue quickly encrypted those notes with an extra layer of security. Walking back to the research lab, Blue realized their own physical responses were changing. Their normal walking speed had increased to match Tom's pace. Their respiratory efficiency had improved from longer observation sessions. Their stability in Earth's gravity had gotten better. Humans, it seemed, didn't just demonstrate remarkable capabilities. They inspired others to push their own limits. Blue was beginning to understand this all too well. The holographic display in the research lab showed a comparison chart of physical capabilities across known sentient species. Blue had spent weeks compiling this data, and the results were clear. Humans were outliers in almost every category. The problem was, nobody believed them. "These numbers can't be accurate," said Professor Zink, their membrane glowing with skepticism. "You're suggesting humans can continue physical activity after reaching exhaustion points that would stop most species." "The data is correct," Blue insisted, their own membrane rippling with frustrated colors. "I've documented hundreds of cases. Humans can push beyond normal biological limits through something they call willpower." The other alien researchers muttered among themselves. Blue understood their doubt. They had felt the same way 3 months ago. But now they had proof, even if it seemed impossible. Tom stepped forward, sensing Blue's frustration. Maybe a demonstration would help. He pulled up his own research files. "We've been documenting human recovery patterns after extreme physical stress." The lad grew quiet as Tom displayed videos of human athletes performing what they called ultramarathons, running continuously for over 24 hours. Blue's data scrolls showed the biological processes that made this possible: efficient cooling systems, remarkable oxygen utilization, and unique muscle fiber recovery patterns. "But how do they avoid permanent damage?" Professor Zink asked, their skepticism finally showing cracks of curiosity. Blue switched to their cellular regeneration data. "Human bodies don't just repair damage. They adapt to prevent future stress. Their muscle fibers become stronger, their bones increase in density, their cardiovascular system becomes more efficient." Tom added, "What looks like dangerous physical stress to other species is actually a natural part of human development. We call it training." The presentation continued, showing evidence that humans could adapt to almost any physical challenge. They could increase their lung capacity for high-altitude living, strengthen their bones in response to gravity stress, even adjust their circadian rhythms to different day-night cycles. This explains much about their rapid spread across various colonial worlds, one researcher noted. "They're not just surviving in different environments. They're adapting to thrive in them." Blue felt their membrane shift to colors of pride as their research was finally being taken seriously. They noticed Tom smiling at them and quickly adjusted their coloration to a more professional hue. After the presentation, other researchers crowded around, asking questions about human physical capabilities. Blue found themselves defending the species they had once dismissed as simple bipedal mammals. The irony wasn't lost on them. Later, in their private research area, Blue and Tom reviewed the day's events. "You were amazing," Tom said. "The way you explained our capabilities made even me see humans in a new light." Blue's membrane flickered with pleasure at the compliment. "Your species continues to surprise me. Just when I think I understand your limits, you prove you don't really have any." "We do have limits," Tom corrected gently. "We just haven't found them all yet. That's what drives us, the desire to see what we can become." Blue began organizing their notes for a formal research paper. The data was extraordinary. Humans could survive in temperature ranges that would kill most species, heal from injuries that would be fatal to others, and adapt to environments that should be impossible to inhabit. But as they worked, Blue realized they had discovered something else. The most remarkable thing about humans wasn't their physical capabilities. It was their constant drive to improve, to push boundaries, to become more than they were. "What are you thinking about?" Tom asked, noticing Blue's distracted membrane patterns. Blue's response surprised them both. "I'm thinking that watching humans makes other species want to exceed their own limits. Your determination is inspiring." Tom was quiet for a moment. "You know, you've changed too. You move more confidently in our gravity now. You've adjusted to our day cycle. You're adapting, just like we do." Blue's membrane displayed colors they had never shown before. They were right. This research hadn't just changed their understanding of humans. It had changed them too. As they continued working on their paper, Blue realized their own species' limitations had always been partly self-imposed. Humans had shown them that barriers existed to be overcome, not accepted. And one particular human had shown them much more than that. The research lab was quiet in the evening hours. Most other scientists had left, but Blue remained, staring at their collection of data files. Their membrane shifted through nervous color patterns as they waited for Tom to finish his work. After months of research together, Blue had finally decided to show him everything. Tom looked up from his desk. "You're doing that color-shifting thing again. What's bothering you?" Blue's tendrils twitched. "I need to show you something. All of it." They connected their personal research device to the main display system. Folders appeared, hundreds of them, each filled with detailed observations. "I knew you were thorough, but this is..." Tom's voice trailed off as he saw the dates. "You've been recording data since your first day here." The first files opened, videos of humans carrying equipment in the heat, detailed analysis of their cooling systems. Then came training sessions at the gym, complete with muscle development patterns. Running events, strength competitions, recovery times, healing rates, all meticulously documented. "This is why Professor Green paired us up, isn't it?" Tom asked softly. "She saw your interest in human capabilities." Blue's membrane turned a deep shade of embarrassment. "There's more." They opened another folder, this one encrypted. It contained hundreds of observations of Tom specifically, his movement patterns, his physical efficiency, his unique biological responses. "Oh," Tom said quietly. "I couldn't help it." Blue's words came quickly now. "Your species fascinated me from the start. But you showed me that humans are more than just remarkable biological machines. You have something that goes beyond physical capabilities." Tom scrolled through the files, his expression unreadable. "You've been studying me all this time." At first it was purely scientific. Blue's membrane rippled with nervous patterns. "I analyzed your superior coordination, your efficient movement patterns, your exceptional thermal regulation. But then I noticed other things. The way you help others without being asked. How you get excited about new discoveries. Your patience in explaining things." "Blue," Tom started, but Blue continued, their tendrils waving anxiously. "Did you know your heart rate increases 13.2% when you solve a difficult problem? Or that your endorphin levels spike when you help someone understand a complex concept? These aren't just physical responses. They show how your emotions and biology are interconnected in ways my species never considered possible." Tom was quiet for a moment, still looking at the data. "This is the most detailed study of human biology I've ever seen, and probably the most personal." Blue's membrane began to fade to gray, their species' color of deep regret. "I understand if you're angry. I should have told you about the extra observations. It was unprofessional and possibly a violation of trust." "I'm not angry," Tom interrupted. "I'm impressed, and maybe a little flattered." He smiled. "Though I wish you'd told me sooner that you found my movement patterns so interesting." Blue's membrane flickered with confusion. "You're not upset about the personal data collection?" "Blue, I've spent the last 3 months watching you watch humans. Did you think I didn't notice how your color patterns change when we work together? Or how your tendrils always point in my direction? I'm a researcher too, remember? Oh, Blue's membrane displayed colors they had never shown before. I didn't realize I was so obvious. For someone so observant, you missed some pretty clear signs that your interest wasn't one-sided, Tom said gently. I've been fascinated by your species too. The way you process information, how your membrane shows your emotions, your dedication to understanding everything around you. Blue's tendrils waved in happy confusion. So my extensive research and personal observations are exactly what I would expect from someone who combines scientific curiosity with personal interest, Tom finished. Though maybe we can continue our mutual study of each other's species over dinner sometime. Blue's membrane cycled through every happy color they possessed. That would be an excellent opportunity for further research. It's a date then, Tom laughed. Though maybe leave the data recorder behind this time. As they began organizing their research for the night, Blue realized that humans had taught them something else. Sometimes the most important discoveries weren't the ones you could measure and document. Sometimes they were the feelings that made your membrane glow with colors you never knew you had. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Scientific Congress buzzed with excitement. Hundreds of beings from across known space had gathered to hear the presentation of a revolutionary paper on human physical capabilities. Blue stood backstage, their membrane shifting between confidence and nervousness, while Tom adjusted the holographic projector. Ready? Tom asked, giving Blue's tendril a gentle squeeze. After 6 months of dating and research collaboration, they had learned each other's signs of stress. Blue's membrane was showing pre-presentation patterns. The Congress hasn't accepted a major revision of species capabilities in 50 years, Blue said, their tendrils waving anxiously. What if they reject our findings? They can't reject what we can prove, Tom replied confidently. We have the data, the studies, and something even better, live demonstrations. The presentation began with their basic findings: human endurance, healing, and adaptation capabilities. The audience murmured as Blue showed comparative charts of physical abilities across species. When they reached the section on human potential for improvement through training, several senior scientists asked for verification of the data. Perhaps a demonstration would help, Tom suggested, stepping forward. He proceeded to perform a series of physical feats, lifting weights that made the gravity worlders gasp, running at speeds that impressed even the high-energy beings, and showing recovery rates that defied conventional biological understanding. Blue's membrane glowed with pride as they explained each demonstration. Humans don't just adapt to survive, they adapt to thrive. Their bodies become stronger when stressed, more efficient when challenged, and more resilient when tested. The questions came rapid fire from the audience. How did humans manage their energy consumption? What were the limits of their adaptation? Could other species learn from their methods? The most remarkable finding, Blue continued, their confidence growing, is that human physical capabilities aren't fixed. They can continuously improve through something they call training, deliberately stressing their bodies to force adaptation. Tom took over, explaining how human determination and willpower could push their bodies beyond normal biological limits. The audience was particularly fascinated by the concept of human sports, the idea of voluntary physical stress for improvement and entertainment. As the presentation concluded, the hall erupted in discussion. Species from high-gravity worlds were impressed by human strength. Beings from harsh environments marveled at human adaptability. Even the energy-based life forms showed interest in human endurance capabilities. The head of the Congress approached them afterward. Your paper will require us to revise our understanding of biological potential, they said. It seems we have all underestimated humans, and perhaps our own capabilities as well. Later, at the celebration dinner, Blue and Tom sat among scientists from dozens of worlds. Species that had once dismissed humans as primitive were now eagerly discussing collaboration opportunities. Several worlds had already requested human athletic trainers and physical education experts. You've changed how the galaxy sees humans, Blue said to Tom, their membrane glowing with affection. "We changed how the galaxy sees possibility," Tom corrected. "Your research showed everyone that limits are meant to be pushed, not accepted." Blue's tendrils wrapped happily around Tom's hand. "I've been offered a permanent research position here on Earth. They want me to continue studying human capabilities, planning to collect more personal data on me," Tom teased, making Blue's membrane flicker with embarrassment and joy. "Actually, I want to study how other species can adapt using human methods. Your people have shown that physical limitations are often self-imposed. Maybe we can all learn to push our boundaries." The celebration continued around them, but Blue was focused on another set of data: how their own body had changed since coming to Earth. They moved more confidently in high gravity now. Their endurance had improved. Even their thought patterns had become more adaptable. "What are you thinking about?" Tom asked, recognizing Blue's analytical membrane pattern. "I came here to study humans," Blue replied, their membrane glowing with warm colors. "Instead, I learned that understanding other species means being willing to change yourself. Humans didn't just show me their capabilities, they showed me my own." Tom smiled, ready to keep pushing those boundaries. Blue's membrane displayed their species' colors for love, excitement, and scientific curiosity all at once. "With you, always. After all, we still have so much data to collect. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again, and one alien scientist would never stop being amazed by them, especially the one sitting next to them, already planning their next research adventure together."